When intelligence director Tulsi Gabbard slipped quietly into the Beverly Hills ballroom for Christian Yelich's annual California Strong charity gala, wearing an elegant black dress instead of her usual government suits, nobody in the room of A-list celebrities and politicians could have imagined that within 2 hours, she would be violating every federal protocol to save the secret love of her life. The gala was Los Angeles' most exclusive charity event, raising millions for wildfire victims across California. Christian had founded California Strong after the devastating Thousand Oaks fires, and tonight marked the foundation's biggest fundraiser yet. Hollywood stars, tech billionaires, and political figures filled the crystal chandeliered ballroom, all there to support a cause that had touched their lives. What none of the 300 guests knew was that their host had been carrying on a clandestine romance with America's top intelligence official for nearly 2 years. It had started during the 2023 wildfire relief efforts. Tulsi had been coordinating federal disaster response when she encountered Christian distributing supplies to displaced families. Their first conversation lasted 3 hours, sitting on the tailgate of a relief truck as smoke filled the California sky. What began as professional respect had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated, a connection so deep and dangerous that discovery could end both their careers. Tonight, they had to be careful. Tulsi arrived separately, mingled with different groups, and exchanged only the briefest glances with Christian as he worked the room. To everyone else, they were strangers who happened to support the same cause. Little did the guests realize that every speech Christian gave, every smile he flashed, was partly for the woman in black who stood near the back of the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," Christian announced from the stage, his voice carrying across the ballroom, "California Strong has raised over $12 million this year because of your generosity." The crowd erupted in applause. Tulsi watched from the shadows, pride mixing with the constant anxiety of their secret relationship. What none of the 300 guests knew was that the man in the server's uniform who had been photographing the crowd all evening, paying particular attention to Tulsi's presence. As the evening's program concluded and guests moved to the reception area, Christian caught Tulsi's eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod toward the private corridor leading to his office. It was their signal, a stolen few minutes together before returning to their separate worlds. But as Christian excused himself from the crowd and headed toward their secret rendezvous, he had no idea that 3 armed men were already waiting in the shadows, and that the next few hours would force Tulsi to choose between her oath to protect national security and her desperate need to protect the man she loved. The attack came swift and silent. As Christian reached the private corridor, a cloth covered his face and everything went black. What happened next would test every skill Tulsi had learned in her intelligence career, but this time it wasn't about national security. It was about saving the one person who meant more to her than her own life. 23 minutes after Christian Yelich vanished from his own charity gala, Tulsi Gabbard faced the most impossible decision of her career. Standing in the bathroom stall where she had retreated to take an encrypted call, she stared at the ransom message that had just appeared on her personal phone. "We have your baseball boyfriend. 50 million or he dies. You have 4 hours. Tell anyone and we release the photos." What the kidnappers didn't know was that they had just declared war on one of the most dangerous women in America. Tulsi's mind raced through protocols. Standard procedure required her to immediately notify FBI, coordinate with local law enforcement, and remove herself from any operational role due to personal involvement. But what the kidnappers had counted on was exactly what made following protocol impossible. The photos they referenced could destroy both her career and Christian's reputation. She had seen enough intelligence briefings to know how these situations typically ended when personal relationships complicated professional response. The bureaucracy would prioritize protecting government interests over saving Christian's life. What they couldn't have anticipated was that Tulsi Gabbard had not become America's top intelligence official by following rules when lives were at stake. In her earpiece, she contacted Deputy Director Marcus Chin, her most trusted lieutenant. "I need a private tactical team in Los Angeles immediately," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her heart. "Priority Alpha, no questions, no paperwork trail." "Ma'am, what's the situation?" Chen asked, recognizing the code for operations that didn't officially exist. What Tulsi told him next would either save Christian or end her career, possibly both. High-value target kidnapped from Beverly Hills. Personal asset, maximum classification. I'm going operational. The words felt strange coming from her mouth. Directors didn't go operational. Directors managed operations from secure facilities in Washington. But Christian wasn't just any asset, and Tulsi wasn't just any director. Within 90 minutes, Chen had assembled a ghost team, former Special Forces operatives who worked off-books contracts for situations too sensitive for regular channels. They met Tulsi at a private airfield in Burbank, where she had traded her elegant gala dress for tactical gear. "Ma'am, with respect, you shouldn't be here," said team leader Sarah Martinez, a former Navy SEAL who had worked dozens of extrications. "Let us handle the operational aspects." Tulsi checked her sidearm and looked Martinez in the eye. "He's my responsibility," she said, her voice carrying an authority that ended all discussion. What she didn't add was that Christian was also the first person in years who had seen her not as Intelligence Director Gabbard, but simply as Tulsi, the woman who laughed at his terrible jokes and fell asleep watching old movies on his couch. The kidnappers had made one critical mistake. They assumed that having leverage over Tulsi's heart would make her weak and desperate. What they failed to understand was that threatening someone she loved had just transformed America's top intelligence official into the most dangerous person they would ever encounter. As her phone buzzed with another message from the kidnappers, Tulsi realized that the next 3 hours would determine not just whether Christian lived or died, but whether love was worth risking everything she had worked her entire life to build. The warehouse in downtown Los Angeles looked abandoned from the outside, but Tulsi's thermal imaging revealed 3 heat signatures on the second floor, 2 guards, and 1 person tied to a chair. Her heart pounded as she recognized Christian's silhouette through the advanced surveillance equipment her team had deployed. "We go in quiet," she whispered into her comms, checking her weapon one final time. Target extraction, minimal casualties, 0 witnesses. What her team didn't know was that this wasn't just another mission for their director. This was the woman who had quietly revolutionized American intelligence, discovering what she would sacrifice for love. Martinez positioned herself at the rear entrance, while Tulsi approached from the front. They had 47 minutes before the kidnappers' deadline expired. What none of them anticipated was that Christian had been listening to his captor's conversations for the past 3 hours, learning details that would change everything. As Tulsi breached the first floor, she heard voices from above. "The intelligence bitch will pay," one kidnapper was saying. "Celebrity boyfriend was just the bait. Real target is getting her here, alone, compromised." Tulsi froze. This wasn't a ransom operation. It was an assassination attempt designed to eliminate America's intelligence director by exploiting her personal vulnerability. What she realized in that moment was that loving Christian hadn't just put him in danger, it had created a national security crisis. But there was no time for regret. Moving with the precision that had made her legendary in covert operations, Tulsi climbed the stairs. Through a crack in the door, she could see Christian tied to a chair, blood on his face, but his eyes alert and defiant. "Where is she?" the lead kidnapper demanded, pressing a gun to Christian's temple. "Go to hell," Christian replied, his voice hoarse but unbroken. That's when Tulsi made her move. The flashbang grenade she tossed through the window created 3 seconds of total chaos, enough time to eliminate 2 threats and reach Christian before the third kidnapper could react. What happened in those next few seconds would be classified in government files for the next 50 years. "You came," Christian whispered, as she cut his restraints, his voice filled with amazement and relief. "Always," she replied, helping him to his feet. But what they both understood as the sirens wailed in the distance was that their secret was no longer secret, and their love story had just become front-page news. As they emerged from the warehouse, news helicopters circled overhead. The photos would be on every media outlet within the hour. America's intelligence director and baseball superstar Christian Yelich, her arm around his waist, both in tactical gear, walking away from what would become known as the gala kidnapping. The choice Tulsi had feared most, between her career and her heart, had been made for her in the space of 3 seconds and one flashbang grenade. But as Christian took her hand in front of the cameras, she realized that some love stories are worth risking everything for, even if it means the most powerful woman in American intelligence might have to learn what it feels like to be simply, completely human. Sometimes the most dangerous missions are the ones we undertake for love. When Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard risked everything to save Christian Yelich, she proved that even the most powerful people are vulnerable when their hearts are on the line. If this story amazed you, don't forget to like and subscribe to The Baseball Story for more incredible tales from the diamond. What other secrets might be hidden behind the headlines?